Mark first noticed something was off with Ella on a Tuesday morning in October. He was rushing to get her ready for school, pouring cereal into a bowl while simultaneously trying to pack her school lunch. When he turned around, bowl in hand, he found Ella staring intently at the wall. "Sweetie, your breakfast is ready," he said. No response. "Ella?" He tried again, a bit louder. She turned to him slowly, her eyes seeming to take an extra moment to focus.
"Oh, thank you, Father."
Mark froze. Father? Since when did his 8-year-old daughter call him father? It was always daddy, or occasionally dad, when she was trying to act grown up. He shook his head, attributing it to his own stress and lack of sleep. His wife, Sarah's death 6 months ago, had left them both reeling, and he was still adjusting to being a single parent. "Come on, kiddo, eat up, so we're not late," he said, ruffling her hair as he passed. Ella nodded and began to eat. She paused, and a brief look of disgust flashed on her face, almost unnoticeable. Her movements became oddly precise and measured. Mark tried to shake off the uneasy feeling settling in his stomach. Over the next few weeks, Mark noticed more peculiarities. Ella's teacher called to ask if everything was all right at home, mentioning that Ella had been unusually quiet and withdrawn at school. Her best friend Amy's mother reached out, concerned that Ella no longer wanted to have playdates. At home, Mark observed other changes. Ella's favorite stuffed animals, once cherished bedtime companions, now sat untouched on a shelf. Her beloved picture books gathered dust while she pored over dense encyclopedias from the library. When he suggested they watch her favorite cartoon, she declined, saying she preferred to read instead. "But you love that show," Mark protested. Ella looked at him, her face impassive.
"I find it no longer holds my interest."
Mark felt a chill run down his spine. The words, the tone, they were all wrong coming from his little girl. One evening, as Mark was tucking Ella into bed, she spoke up.
"Father, I require sustenance."
Mark blinked, taken aback. "Sweetie, we just had dinner an hour ago. Are you still hungry?" Ella's eyes, usually a warm brown like her mother's, seemed darker somehow.
"Not that kind of sustenance."
Before Mark could ask what she meant, Ella rolled over and closed her eyes. He stood there for a moment, unsettled, before quietly leaving the room. Later that night, Mark couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, his mind racing. Was this all just part of Ella's grieving process? Should he take her to a child psychologist? As he lay there in the darkness, he heard a soft thump from Ella's room. Heart pounding, Mark got up and crept down the hallway. He paused outside Ella's door, listening. Another thump, followed by what sounded like chewing. He pushed the door open. "Ella?" The room was pitch black. As his eyes adjusted, he made out Ella's small form sitting up in bed. She turned to look at him, and Mark's blood ran cold. Her eyes glinted in the darkness, reflecting light that wasn't there.
"Hello, Father,"
she said, her voice unnaturally deep.
"I was just having a little snack."
Mark fumbled for the light switch, his hands shaking. When the room flooded with light, he saw Ella sitting cross-legged on her bed, surrounded by the mangled remains of her stuffed animals. Cotton stuffing was strewn about like snow, and in her hands, she held the head of her favorite teddy bear. As he watched in horror, she raised it to her mouth and took another bite. "Ella?" Mark stammered, his mind refusing to process what he was seeing. "What are you doing?" She smiled, and Mark saw that her teeth had changed, becoming sharp and numerous.
"I told you, Father, I require sustenance."
Mark backed away, his heart threatening to burst from his chest. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. "You're not Ella," he whispered. The thing wearing his daughter's face tilted its head.
"No,"
it agreed.
"I'm not."
Mark turned and ran, slamming the bedroom door behind him. He leaned against it, grasping for air, his mind reeling. What was he supposed to do? Call the police? An exorcist? As these thoughts raced through his head, he heard Ella's voice, her real voice, coming from inside the room.
"Daddy, Daddy, help me."
Mark's heart leapt. "Ella? Baby, is that you?"
"Daddy, I'm scared. There's something under the bed."
Without thinking, Mark threw open the door and rushed in. The room was back to normal. No stuffing, no mangled toys. Ella sat huddled in her bed, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, sweetheart," Mark said, relief washing over him. He moved to embrace her, but stopped short when she shrank back.
"No, Daddy." Don't come closer. It'll get you too.
Mark frowned. What will get me, honey? Ella pointed a trembling finger at the space under her bed.
The thing that took me, it's still down there.
A chill ran down Mark's spine. What do you mean, took you?
It came in the night.
Ella whimpered.
It pulled me under the bed. It made itself look like me. It keeps me here.
Mark's mind raced. If Ella was here, then what had he been living with for the past few weeks? Slowly, he knelt down and lifted the edge of the bedspread. The space under the bed was impossibly dark, as if the darkness itself was a tangible thing. As he peered into it, he saw movement. Something shifted in the depths. And then he was looking into a pair of glowing eyes. The same eyes he had seen reflected in Ella's face earlier.
Hello, Father.
Came Ella's voice from behind him, deep and wrong.
Would you like to join us?
Before Mark could react, he felt small hands on his back, shoving him forward with inhuman strength. He toppled headfirst into the darkness under the bed. His scream cut short as the shadows engulfed him. In Ella's room, two identical girls now sat on the bed. They turned to each other and smiled, their teeth sharp and gleaming in the dim light.
Shall we go downstairs for a proper meal?
One asked.
Oh, yes.
The other replied.
I'm absolutely famished.
Hand in hand, they walked out of the room, leaving behind only silence and the faint smell of decay wafting from beneath the bed.
Thanks for staying with us as we have gone beyond the streetlight. Next time you venture out into the darkness, be wary of what might be waiting for you. Until then, sleep with the lights on. Scared of taking that unnecessary shortcut alone? Tell your friends to follow and hit subscribe for more.